Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be my full review of this knife, and this is the Jack Wolf Knives After Hours Jack. And so first of all, I want to thank Ben for sending this knife along for review. I love getting to check these out, and this is one that I was particularly excited for. And the reason for that is because I love Barlows. I am a big fan of Barlows. The knife that got me into traditional knives is a TC Barlow with a sheep foot. I started the Barlow Bearcat Club, which you can check out at the link in the description if you are also an enthusiast of Barlows. And this is a locking, one-hand opening version of Jack Wolf Knives Barlow. So this is the Midnight Jack, which is one of my favorite Jack Wolf knives. And it's a really interesting Barlow in itself because it is a coffin-handled Barlow. So you don't see a whole lot of coffin handles in general, but definitely you don't see many, if any, if I've ever seen another coffin-handled Barlow. So that was really cool when this Midnight Jack came out. I really love it. I carry it quite frequently. And Ben asked me when he, was going to ask me which version of this I was interested in checking out. He said, well, what do you think's coming? Just to see if I could guess. And I had a feeling that he was going to do a flipper, a one-hand opening version of the Midnight Jack. And that's what I guessed, and I was right. So I guess I just kind of had an intuition on it, and was really happy that my intuition was right because I do love Barlows. And so this is a modernized, almost like a modernized version of the modernized Barlow that is the Midnight Jack. But the second thing I wanted to get into here is that unfortunately my unboxing video that I made just didn't work. The sound and the video both would not work for me. So I wanted to show you real quick the packaging. Now, if you're familiar with Jack Wolf knives, you're probably somewhat familiar with all of the great extras and packaging that they come with. But here is the art for the After Hours Jack, and you can see it's a little risque. Jack has a companion, and he is in his kind of smoking robe. He's got a drink in his hand and going behind a curtain. Really interesting art there. And then inside you have, first of all, the Pog, which is a nice touch. I remember Pogs were actually a little bit before me, but I remember my brothers having Pogs, and here it's kind of like a cut down version of the art. And then you also have a filler tab for the pocket clip. So this is a small little thing. You can see it is numbered, and that's because all of the pieces here, so the covers, the scales, are numbered to match together. So you don't want to lose that. If you ever want to carry it without the pocket clip, you want to have that filler. And speaking of which, a nice little surprise, which interestingly, on the Jack Wolf Knives Worldwide Facebook group, which I highly suggest joining. I'll put a link to that in the description also. But on that Facebook group, someone had asked whether it comes with a slip, and I mentioned that it did, and Ben actually mentioned that it was, I think, kind of a mix-up. It wasn't intended to come with a slip. The other locking knife from Jack Wolf Knives, the Gunslinger, did not come with a leather slip, but this one does. So it's an interesting touch and kind of a happy accident. Now I don't know how it fits because honestly I prefer carrying this with the slip, or I'm sorry, with the clip, not the slip. So I haven't tried it, but I think it's a nice touch, especially if you do want to put that filler tab in and not use the clip. And then you also have a sticker. In fact, you have two stickers. So that's a nice touch that they did recently. They started putting two of the stickers in. I like that because I put one of them from each knife on my safe, my cabinet, and then it's nice to have an extra one, basically. And then it also comes with a microfiber cloth. This is a gray one, just a nice little extra. It's wrapped in the cloth, similar to how some traditional knives are wrapped in wax paper. So kind of a similar feel to the traditional knives there. And then also you can use it to wipe the knife off. So all those things are great. I really enjoy having those extras. I think it makes for a good thing, a good thing on these high-end knives, because these are coming in at $350, the locking versions of the Jack Wolf knives models. So it's not an inexpensive knife, and that's not lost on me. I'm, as I've said in lots of these videos, extremely fortunate and happy and lucky to get to check these out. But I think that they are superb knives. So I want to go into this knife itself. So first of all, I already knew that I was going to love the design because it's a Barlow. And so what does that mean if you're not familiar with Barlows? It means that it has an elongated bolster. So you can see that this bolster here is longer than, let's compare it to, I'll show you the Gunslinger. So this is the other locking Jack Wolf knives. You can see that that bolster is a good bit longer. And then compared to a non-locking Jack Wolf knives, this is just the first one that I pulled out here from my case. This is the K9 Jack, and you can see that the bolster is much shorter. A Barlow, typically the bolster is expected to be definitely elongated, maybe around a third the length of the handle, and this is definitely a Barlow. So I already knew I was going to love it. I knew that I loved the Midnight Jack with its coffin handle shape, and I knew that I really loved the Gunslinger. So the Gunslinger is the extra modernized version of the Sharpshooter, the first knife that Jack Wolf Knives came out with. And I really loved how Ben took his design, his version of the gun stock in the Sharpshooter, and made it even more modern. He really translated it to having the lock and the pocket clip and the one-hand opening without taking away the traditional aesthetic. So this, if you look at it like this, barring the screws, it pretty much looks exactly like a traditional gun stock Jack. So really awesome. And then of course you turn it over and you've got an inset frame lock and a pocket clip. But he did a great job of that, and I knew that it would be the same for the after hours, and it very much is. So I would say even more so in a way. And what I mean by that is that if you look at this, it really just looks like a Barlow. And then on this side here, you can see that because it has this long bolster, maybe you can see a little bit more of that lock, but to me, I don't know, it just, because it still has that long bolster, it really looks like a traditional Barlow, just with, a little bit of extra cutting in there. So I really love how Ben is able to translate these traditional designs into these modern knives. Now there's a bunch of different versions of this, some different handle colors. There's an all titanium with jig titanium. There's a blacked out one. There's one with kieranite. And I went with this version for two main reasons. So the first reason is because I don't have a purple Jack Wolf knife, and I wanted to have one. I have a little mini purple, let's see if I can find it here. Maybe not. Oh, I think it's on my shelf. I have a little mini purple Barlow from Rough Rider Knives that I actually really like. It's an incredible knife for $6. And so I can carry a mini purple Barlow with a slip joint mechanism and a modern larger Barlow with the flipper here that are both purple. But so I really like the purple, and it is really cool. You can see there's beautiful layers to it, different colors of purple, I believe, in there. So kind of a lighter purple like here, and then a darker purple. So I do love the look of that. But then the other reason, I was considering going with the full titanium, the jig titanium. But if you look here, when you have full titanium, you're gonna see that whole lock bar. And actually, if I remember correctly, the lock bar cutout is on the outside on the full titanium version. So I went with this one because the covers cover the frame lock in large part. So I think it helps it to maintain that traditional look more than on the full titanium versions. And I'm really happy with it. I think that it looks really beautiful. The anodization on the backspacer and on the pocket clip are, you know, beautiful, incredible. I really love the purple color. And I'm a fan of purple anodization in general. One of my favorite, you know, colors of a knife is this knife. This is a Takray DT03. And I just love the color on this. And you can see, you know, it's a different purple, but it's still a very beautiful purple. So I really appreciate that. Now, when I got this knife, I was surprised by it having a little bit lighter detent than what I was used to with the Gunslinger. So the detent is relatively light, but it's definitely snappy. It's easy to pull it out of this, but it definitely pulls itself down in. You can see that. And it's easy to use. And, you know, I was talking about this with Ben, and he said it's kind of a balancing act. You know, you want to have the front flipper be easy to use, but still be able to use the middle finger flick and the thumb roll. And the truth is, you can definitely do that. And even though I had been used to the Gunslingers, you know, a little bit stronger detent, after I was using this after hours jack for a while, it started to feel like the Gunslinger was a little bit hard to front flip. It's a little bit rougher on the edge of your thumb. And I have had some front flippers that have literally like torn open my thumb just from doing it over and over again, and the sharp jimping. So I actually like this detent, even though it's a little lighter than I'm normally used to. I think that it's really well dialed in for the front flipping. It's really easy to front flip. Even people who aren't really used to front flippers, I've, you know, let check this out, and it has you know, been easy for them to front flip. So, you know, you can definitely get purchase on there, front flip it, and it doesn't hurt your thumb, which is a nice thing. I mean, the front flipper, it's a, you know, it's practical, but it's kind of also, you know, just for fun. And so if you're going to be flicking it open and closed a whole bunch, I think that you want it to be easy to do so, not going to be hard on your thumb. You know, and I'm sure there's going to be people that come in and say, oh, don't be a baby, you know, your thumb should have a bunch of calluses on it, whatever. You know, I'm not trying to be tough about it. I'm just trying to be truthful about it here, and I do appreciate that it's a little easier to front flip. Now, like I said, you can definitely middle finger flick it. You want to get a good kind of flick to it, but you can get purchase on that long pull really well, and you can definitely thumb roll it also. No problem there. So easy to open, and as you have seen, it is very, very smooth. So these are on bearings. No surprise there. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to not be, but it is very much drop closed, and I can even shake it closed there. So very, very smooth, well centered, and locks up nice and solid. Now, to be honest, I actually did take this apart, and it was easy to take apart and put back together. No problem with that. But there's no blade play. I got it back to having no blade play, and it's still that smooth, and no forward and back. I've actually spine whacked this just to make sure with the lighter detent that it's not going to slip or anything like that, and it took the spine wax fine. So no problems with the lockup there. The ergonomics are great. So this is a little bigger than the Midnight Jack. It is really kind of like what I would call a full-size knife. Now, it's interesting that I say that because the blade is about 3.2 inches, the handle's about 4.2 inches, so it's definitely smaller than a lot of the knives that I typically carry as my modern knife. So I do like, you know, a 3.5 to even 4-inch or longer blade like on the Spyderco Military 2. But it feels like this could be your only knife. Like, you wouldn't need a larger knife or a backup. This is going to do pretty much everything you need at the 3.2 inches. And like I say, it is bigger than the Midnight Jack. So to give you a size comparison here, you can see that it's longer, a little taller, but definitely longer. So it does feel like this could be your main knife, you know. It's not just like a dainty gentleman's knife. It will do your cutting, and I think it's going to cut really well for, you know, your normal EDC task, because these are ground very, very nicely. I want to show you the grind again. Very nice thin grind. It cut great for me. I actually use this a lot, and it cut really, really well. I did sharpen it. I felt like, you know, it needed evened out just a little bit, and so I did sharpen it, and I think it did even out with that sharpening. One thing that I wanted to mention here, and I did talk to Ben about this, is that there's kind of a little bit of a machining thing on my long pull. So if you look right here, you can see instead of being perfectly straight like on, sorry for the bump there, like on the Gunslinger, so comparing to the Gunslinger here, you can see that there's a little bit of a downturn here on the long pull, a little bit of an upturn, a little bit less, but definitely a downturn there. And on the other side, there's a definite upturn, so up towards the spine and slightly down towards the edge. And Ben said that if someone got that and, you know, had an issue with it, that he would definitely help them out, you know, give them some kind of rebate or a replacement if he had one. So just be aware, you know, Ben does absolutely stand behind these knives. I've seen like countless examples of him really making sure to give good customer service on these, especially, you know, I think again it's good to join that Jack Wolf Knives Worldwide, because he is active on there. So you know, he's going to stand behind this. He's going to make sure that you're happy with your knife, even if it's a non practical issue like that. So just be aware of that. But I really love this knife. I have carried it pretty much every day, I think every day since I've gotten it, and have used it a lot, and I'm really, really happy with it. I think it's a nice opportunity for someone like me who loves Barlow so much to have a Barlow as their modern knife. So I do appreciate that. That way you can carry a Barlow with your Barlow. So I really like this after hours jack. If you're a Barlow enthusiast, by all means, I think this is a great opportunity. And it's just a really well-built knife, even with, you know, some small issues like the long pull and the uneven edge. I think that Ben's going to stand behind it. You're going to get a really unique, really well-designed knife, really well-made knife. So as always, I really appreciate Ben sending these along for review. I love getting to check them out and review them, and frankly, I love getting to carry and use them too. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. These are dropping today, the 15th of December, 2023. So make sure you grab one if you want one. Also, make sure you check out my website, knifethoughts.com. I have articles on knives like this and knife-related topics, as well as some cool gear like this Knife Thoughts coffee mug. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.